atmosphere.
Hi, welcome to Dead by Daylight. My name is Zoe, and today I want to teach you basically everything I can about Springtrap. This killer is a big deal, and I'm predicting he'll be very popular for a long time for both killer and survivor players, so I want to make sure nobody out there gets discouraged from playing as or against him anytime soon. Despite not really being a huge fan of the source material or the creator of the franchise he comes from, I really enjoy this killer, and I want to invest the time to make sure others can enjoy him as well. And, you know, range killers are kind of my jam, so I feel like I've got the chops for this job, if anyone. I'm not going to dive too deep into every single particular stat this killer has, because to me, that info is not only unhelpful, it's subject to change at any time. Instead, I'll be focusing on the more foundational elements of how his power works, how to approach chases, and how to play Dead by Daylight, aka macro. But if there's something I don't cover here today, or he gets updated or changed by the time you watch this, you're free to pop by my Twitch stream and ask me anything about Springtrap whenever I'm live.
Oh, that was so close, god damn it.
And anyways, with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Springtrap's power is very simple to pick up and play with, but here's everything you need to know first. Holding the power button will aim your fire axe, and pressing the attack button while aiming will throw it. The axe will always travel the same speed no matter how long you charge it for, so don't worry about winding it up for too long. You're free to either take your time or throw it as soon as possible as long as the shot presents itself. The fire axe has a very unique and very harsh throwing arc, which can be manipulated to such a degree that it can actually be used to play around the vast majority of obstacles in your way. The weighty projectile, by its nature, does have a maximum range though, which can be achieved by throwing at a roughly 45-degree angle. It's not a long range, so keep in mind that after a certain point, you can't hit survivors anymore. Once it's thrown, it'll stick to the environment, or survivors, until you recall it. There's a short cooldown after throwing, but after this, you can recall the axe at any time, which will allow you to throw it again. When it's embedded in the environment, it creates a small AoE that reveals survivors who pass through it, which prevents them from mind-gaming you if the axe is stuck in a spot that they have to pass through. If it's embedded in a survivor, they become broken, which makes them unable to heal themselves or be healed by another teammate. They also receive the Oblivious status effect, which makes them unable to read your heartbeat. And it's kind of an Easter egg, but if you get close enough to the survivor while they have the axe stuck in them, you can retrieve it manually and instantly pick them up where they stand. With a jump scare, of course. You might be wondering how you're supposed to get close enough to a survivor for a grab in the first place, seeing as his movement speed is lower than other killers at 4.4 instead of the regular 4.6. Well, whenever you throw the axe, your movement speed is actually increased to 4.6 until you recall it. This makes Springtrap very versatile and unique, and forces you to make decisions about recalling your axe at every step of the game. I think we've talked enough about his ranged attack now though, so let's move on to his secondary power, the security doors. 7 of these bad boys spawn around the map, sort of close to generators, usually. As a survivor, you can walk up to these and interact with them to access the camera system. Attached to each of the doors is a camera, and all of the cameras can be accessed from any security door. You can either cycle between cameras or highlight and select specific ones by aiming at them, letting you more quickly check specific locations such as Shack if you can remember the layout of any map. You might be wondering what the point of the cameras is aside from just mere surveillance. Well, if you spot Springtrap, keep the camera focused on him and you can reveal his aura to you and all of your teammates for a lengthy duration. This will prevent him from sneaking up on your team, so if your teammates aren't on comms with you or just aren't super experienced, try and scout the killer for them while they make repairs or heals, so they don't have to worry too much about tracking the killer. Additionally, when you're checking a camera, you can press a button to actually enter your current security door and teleport to the one that the camera you're using is attached to. This can help you get around the map more quickly, but this feature has a pretty big risk attached to it. For one, his fire axe can disable a security door for 45 seconds, blocking the attached camera from being used. This doesn't affect him because he can't use the cameras, presumably because his big robo fingers are too big to push the buttons. Instead, he can enter a security door directly and choose another one to exit from at any time. Teleporting this way grants Springtrap the undetectable status effect, hiding his aura, terror radius, and red stain. However, it doesn't make you walk any quieter, so don't expect to get the jump on anyone with those loud-ass footsteps. And finally, while in a security door, you can see what doors survivors are teleporting to and from. If you choose a door that a survivor is currently teleporting to, And you can also do this if you follow survivor as they enter the door. And yeah, that's all the basics of how to play as and against Springtrap. As you can tell, this killer has a lot going on, but thankfully it's all quite simple and straightforward. But don't be tricked into thinking that a simple killer from a series whose target audience is primarily children can't also be extremely intricate. If you're a FNAF fan or a ranged killer fan, I would absolutely recommend sticking with Springtrap for the long haul and trying to get good at him. Because despite having a low skill floor, this killer has an incredibly high skill ceiling that once achieved will net you some insane results, clips, and excitement. I feel like the best way to teach y'all how to play Springtrap, especially if you've never played DBD before, is to start with more basic advice and then slowly progress towards more advanced techniques later. So let's start from the bottom. If you're new to Springtrap, here's how to approach chases. Before starting a chase, remember that Springtrap has multiple ways of helping himself find survivors. Like I mentioned earlier, you move faster when your axe is in the environment, so before you enter chase, try lobbing it near a generator, security door, or totem to keep tabs on survivors while catching up to your first chase. Your terror radius is smaller than other killers as well, so even if you choose not to use your teleport first, you should still be able to get close to survivors before they notice you. Once you're in chase, keep a note of where the survivor is running. If they're out in the open with nowhere to go, get as close as you can with your increased speed before recalling it, then toss it at them. This will make it easier to land your shot, and this will net them less distance than if you just hit them with a basic attack. If you're playing Survivor and you've got a good bit of distance, don't worry too much about dodging. Just try to be thankful that you're not playing against a more fun and skillful killer right now. Remember, Springtrap actually has a maximum range, and he moves slowly enough that eventually you will run out of it if he misplays, so try and focus more on getting distance instead of preemptively dodging, as the axe will only get more reactable the further away you are. And once Springtrap gets close to you, be prepared, not surprised, when you take a hit from the axe. The speed boost from the hit will more than likely give you enough distance to reach a resource, such as a maze tile, a structure, or a filler. With that in mind, let's talk about how to play fillers next. Fillers are pallets and obstacles that are meant to fill out the space between structures and maze tiles. There are two types of fillers: safe fillers and unsafe fillers. Safe fillers are pallets with large obstacles nearby, providing more vertical and or horizontal cover. Unsafe fillers, as the name implies, have very little cover, meaning they will provide almost no protection from any killer, and especially not a killer like Springtrap who has a projectile. And I'll give you a little spoiler right now. Weak fillers are not something you want to use in chase against this killer, but we'll go into how to use them later. Maze tiles are commonly reused tiles that spawn on several different maps, only varying slightly in shape and size. These are usually pretty easy to identify. Just look for tall, man-made looking walls, and that's probably a maze tile. If you play around enough maps, you'll start to memorize their common layouts, which will often contain a window, pallet, or generator, and sometimes even all three. These are some of the safest places to run to against Springtrap, as the high walls make it so he won't get many chances for direct shots, and will instead have to hit you with an easy-to-avoid orbital, or an animation lock hit that takes a while to set up. I'll elaborate a bit more on how to avoid both of these situations in a second, but for now let's talk about structures, which are a bit more complicated. Structures are map-specific obstacles that can range from simple line-of-sight blockers, to big tiles with a safe pallet, to extremely strong main buildings. There's a ton of these, so I literally don't have time to teach you every single one of them in this video, but you should pay attention to these and familiarize yourself with how to play them. Line-of-sight breaking structures such as this log pile or this truck are often not really intended to be looped, but can still make for great cover if you want to avoid a ranged attack like the axe. Some structures simply offer a strong pallet or window, such as this crane or this snowplow, but the safest structures you want to run to are buildings. Shack will always have your back on most maps, as it always has a strong window and a stronger pallet next to it. Meanwhile, some maps' main buildings will be even better, offering plenty of safety and usually a generator. And so now that you're familiar with the map terminology I'll be using, I'll give you some tips on how to actually play some of these tiles. When playing a pallet with a lot of cover, try forcing the survivor to drop it before recalling your axe, or lob the axe high to make the survivor back up into the pallet and drop it. And then once the pallet is dropped, you now have two options: break it or leave it. Breaking it will of course get rid of the pallet forever, but this will also cause the survivor to gain distance and venture further into the map, able to reach more resources that might be even better than the pallet you just broke. It'll be up to you to use game sense and your own judgment to learn when the best time to break pallets is. Alternatively, you can keep the pallet down to entice survivors to play around them instead. If a survivor runs around a drop pallet, most of the time it's pretty easy to force them to vault it and hit them before they cross the other side. As a survivor playing against Springtrap, keep in mind that without his axe, he isn't much of a threat. The speed he gets without it isn't going to be enough to catch you, so be sure not to give him too much without making him use his axe for it. Take the time when he can't recall his axe after misses to either gain distance or throw a pallet that you're currently at, depending on what you have available nearby. However, if he's right behind you and he has his axe ready, try not to drop a pallet before he hits you. You're basically just going to give him a free hit and a free pallet to destroy at the same time. And I figured there's no better time than now to mention this, so let's just get into it. As mentioned earlier, Springtrap can throw his axe over most obstacles, including strong fillers like this. This requires rather precise timing, spacing, aim, and luck, but once you get good at it, it elevates Springtrap to an extremely high level and allows you to hit rather unexpected shots. If you're a survivor and think a killer is going for these shots, be sure to look up and try to be unpredictable with where you move. And don't be afraid to give up a little distance in order to dodge his projectile. As long as you have enough cover, you should still be safe even if he gains a little ground, because he slows down for a bit after the throw. Keep in mind that ranged killers aren't dash killers. No matter how close they get to hitting you, if they miss, they're likely losing a lot more than they gain. In Springtrap's case, he loses his axe for a few seconds, which gives you some time to get away without any further risk of getting hit. After learning how to do orbitals, you might be tempted to use them all the time, everywhere, and every chance you get, but keep in mind that this only works sometimes, and it's by no means your best play in every situation, or even most situations. Orbitals, while fun to go for, are not important when it comes to actually winning a game or ending a chase as Springtrap. With that said, most of the time your best play will be what I discussed earlier: zone survivor into pallet or vault and hit them during it. Simple. But of course, don't be discouraged from experimenting. You can do some wacky stuff with the axe, and I encourage you to go wild and have fun with it, but only if you don't mind losing a few chases or games for it. As for survivors, maze tiles and structures are going to be the safest resources to use against Springtrap. As mentioned before, usually his best option here is to attempt to hit you while you're stuck in an animation. Try and make this as hard as you can by using unpredictable pathing and keeping enough distance from him so that he can't hit a shot. Drop pallets early while you're out of range, and stay behind cover so that he has to make prediction shots, and you should mostly be fine. But my final and biggest bit of advice for these kinds of tiles is to use your third-person camera to your advantage. You're actually able to see Springtrap over a fair few obstacles while he can't see you. Use this in conjunction with spots where you can watch multiple angles at once, and you won't ever be caught off guard by his approach. This technique is called check spotting, and learning how to do this effectively will make you much better against every killer. This is more effective against Springtrap, however, as he has to approach you slowly and his footsteps are loud, so you shouldn't be getting surprised by him if you get good at this. As you get better at Survivor, playing maze tiles and structure is going to end up getting quite formulaic if you know what Springtrap is capable of, and you'll only get better and better with more experience. Once you familiarize yourself with map layouts, you'll be able to more effectively find, use, and chain your resources together with confidence. So now that we're done discussing chases, let's go into how to play macro, otherwise known as actually winning games. Macro is a bit of a hard thing to explain in one video about one killer, but I'll try my best to explain everything you need to know for Springtrap at least. As a survivor, quickly get your bearings on where you've spawned, split it from your teammates, and look for generators. One person will usually get found in the process, but as long as you all split up and use my chase tips, you should be able to get a lot of progress in before the killer gets their first hook. If you get a chance, check the cameras and try to reveal Springtrap every now and then to your teammates, as this will not only ensure you don't get snuck up on, but it'll also help them in their chases. This isn't something you should do too frequently though, as it's a big waste of time if you can't find him. And don't forget, the security doors can actually run out of battery as well, so try not to waste their power. The best time to check cameras is while or right after Springtrap hooks a survivor, as there's very little he can do to stop the reveal from happening. When you're in chase, keep in mind that you can actually see the aura of nearby security doors. Use this to bring Springtrap close to them and allow your teammates to easily reveal him, giving you the advantage of wall hacks mid-chase. Moving back over to Springtrap, you're going to want to find survivors quickly and sneak up on them. Find a security door ASAP and travel to wherever the most likely spawn point of survivors are, or depending on how long it takes you to find a door, wherever they're most likely to have gone after spawning. This is something you'll be able to figure out over time, but don't worry about being too precise, as you can also use the lengthy undetectable effect to sneak up on survivors after exiting the door. This will help you get into your first chase, and using my tips from earlier, hopefully help you get your first down and subsequent hook relatively quickly. Getting your first hook fast is very important, as the whole game snowballs after that. To take the most advantage of a down as possible, try and hook the survivor near generators, basement, or if the game is already nearly over, exit gates, as you'll be able to defend both the hook and objectives at the same time, slowing down the game much more than you would just throwing survivors on any random hook. As a survivor, when you have a teammate on the hook, the game gets a lot more complex. Be sure to try and make unhooks as safe and easy as possible, which you can guarantee in a few ways. If you're in chase with the killer, especially while injured, don't run towards the hook. You might get tempted to run in for the unhook by yourself, but this will almost always result in you getting killed and your teammate getting tunneled. Instead, look for the ore of the hook and go the opposite direction, even if it gets you killed. When a teammate is on the hook, it's no longer your job to survive, it's to make sure the unhook happens. If the killer is choosing to stay close to the hook, you don't even have to run far. All you have to do is make the killer swing or look away for just a second, and that'll be enough for another survivor to sneak in and unhook without risking anything. If you're playing with friends, be sure to implement the two-man save method whenever you really need an unhook as well. Two survivors go in, one gets hit and runs away, the other one unhooks completely safely. This is really easy and incredibly powerful, so never forget how to do this. And don't forget to protect your teammate after they get unhooked rather than just letting them go off on their own. Stick together to make sure that survivor isn't targeted and tunneled out. But do you want to know what's better than getting a safe unhook? Not getting hooked in the first place. As a survivor in chase, take where you're going into account. Try to take the killer away from gens that are being worked on if possible, which might unfortunately mean avoiding strong structures such as shack and main building where generators usually spawn. And if you don't have anywhere to go, just go nowhere. Take the killer to an area where literally nothing is, such as where generators have already been completed or corners that are far away from the primary structures. Need a good place to die and have a teammate nearby? Try finding one of those god-awful filler pallets I mentioned earlier. If you're at one of these weaker pallets, do not bother dropping it in chase. Instead, die underneath it on purpose. This will give anyone nearby the opportunity, or at the very least, the ability to threaten Springtrap by trying to save you. If the killer picks you up while you're under a pallet, another survivor can drop it on their head and stun them and let you run free. This will pretty much make all the time they took chasing you beforehand completely null and void, as he won't earn a hook for it. And against Springtrap specifically, you can also gain the opportunity to force this scenario if you have the axe embedded in you. As a Springtrap player, be mindful of survivors trying to do this. Don't risk going for a grab attack if a survivor is under a pallet, especially if they're gesturing it on purpose. You can avoid using the grab attack by performing a lunge if you're far back, or a basic attack while looking away. As a matter of fact, be mindful of survivors dying under pallets on purpose in general. Sometimes it could just be bait, but it doesn't hurt to check. If someone is nearby, you can pretty quickly dispatch them with your axe, but if you pick up and someone's there, you're going to regret it. And before you commit to a chase at all, make sure the survivor isn't running somewhere that you don't want to be. Yes, your objective at the end of the day is to kill survivors, but if a survivor is intentionally playing dumb and revealing themselves to you, it's probably because it's more effort than it's worth to chase them. Stick close to your gens and only go out of your way to chase survivors who have already been hooked, and as such, are more likely to be closer to death. Because while the game is a 4v1, realistically, you can basically guarantee victory by just killing 2. See, 4 survivors alive at the same time will always kick your ass. You can't beat all 4 of them unless they screw something up. If you want to win, you have to dismantle the group. Putting people on the floor or hook takes them out of the game temporarily, but the remaining 3 can still get a lot done. The reason you want to aim for a kill is because this hurts the remaining survivor's chance of escape by a lot. Unhooking during a 3v1 is always either unsafe or requires a complete pause on objectives to guarantee, as there will only be 2 players remaining to perform a 2-man save. And once you get your second kill, there's basically nothing the remaining 2 can do to escape unless the gates are already powered. All you'll have to do from that point is hook one of the remaining 2 players, and the other one will just have to let them die. And if you find the last remaining player, that's game over. In conclusion, this killer is awesome. If you're a FNAF fan, I really hope you enjoy him as much as I do as a DBD fan. If you want some tips on what perks and add-ons to run, here's my honest suggestion. Just use whatever you want, honestly. Find some time to brush up on what all the perks and add-ons do, use whichever ones you think cover your shortcomings, and then settle with whatever build you find most fun or comfortable to use. That's genuinely it. Maybe some of you out there will find that to be a lame answer, but there's no one thing I can really suggest you use. Perks and add-ons get reworks, number changes, buffs, and nerfs all the time, so even if I gave you some picks, they might not even be the same by the time you watch this video. But if you still want my advice on what builds to use, don't forget to catch me streaming on Twitch every week. I'd be happy to give you build advice live and even demonstrate some of my favorites.
Oh.
And with that, that's all the time I have today. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, comment if you got something to say, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you to everyone who supported me on Twitch, Ko-fi, and even right here on YouTube. All of your support the past year I've been making videos has been just amazing, and I really appreciate it. But I'll see you all next time. Good night.